Yuuichi finally has the 70,000 yen he needs for the class trip. Despite his rich friend Shibei offering to pay, he would rather earn it himself by working at his part-time job. Shiho tells Shibei off, while Tenji steps in and commends Yuuichi for a job well done. But it looks like the school trip is cancelled when Shiho tells the class that the 2 million yen she collected as class president was stolen from her locker. The class becomes suspicious when Shiho and Shibei miss the next few days of school. Yuuichi finds a letter from Shiho claiming she has something important she has to tell him and to meet up that night in front of the school gates. He arrives to find Shiho and the rest of his friends demanding to know why he sent them letters. Something's not right. Just as Yuuichi figures they've been set up, he gets tased and blacks out. The group wakes up in a white room, confused when someone dressed as Manabu-kun, a character from a late-night anime, shows up and announces that they are there to play a few simple games. One of them apparently owes 20 million yen and paid 2 million in entry fees. One of them must have stolen the money for the class trip. If they don't play, that person will still owe the entire 20 million. But if they do, it will be evenly split between them, each owing a total of 4 million. If they lose, then they're all on the hook for their individual debt. But if they decide to play, they have the chance to reduce their debt. That is, if they can win, of course. They are all given name tags, with their own debt displayed on the back. However, if they show that number to anyone else, it will automatically double. It's a game of trust, testing the limits of their friendship. Which is more important, money or friends? They enter a fake classroom where the first game is Kokkuri. All 5 must answer a yes or no question, placing their hand on a giant coin. If even a single person answers differently, the coin moves in accordance with the minority vote. The person reading the question is the only one permitted to speak. If anyone speaks out of turn, their debt doubles. The first question is a no-brainer. The answer is obviously yes. Yuuichi places his hand on the coin. But the group answers no. How could they possibly get it wrong? Shiho is about to have an outburst when Tenji and Yuuichi quickly cover her mouth. Putting a finger to their lips, they point at the board, reminding her of the rules. Yuuichi wonders how they got it wrong. Maybe someone answered no on purpose? He's confident when the second question is even easier than the first. Someone must have been nervous and got confused. Again, the group answers no. Yuuichi suspects there's a traitor in their midst, but what do they have to gain? There has been some fighting recently. Shibei tried to kiss Shiho, and he had to smooth things over. Third question. Wrong again. Yuuichi starts spiraling, now doubting the people he trusts. It's his turn. But the card is blank. He has to come up with his own question. Well, it's not completely blank. At the bottom, it reveals that if the group gets his question wrong, his debt will be halved. It's starting to make sense now. If they lose the game, the person with the highest debt takes on everyone else's. He has to choose yes, so Yutori doesn't end up with the entire debt. He always treats her better than the others, and she trusts him the most. Despite his efforts, they still get it wrong. He figures it out. The last question won't have any conditions like the other 4. Yutori reads the last question. Will the 5 of them always be friends? Before they can answer, Yuichi's countenance changes. With a smug grin, he asks if anyone knows what color Shiho's underwear is. He knows nobody will speak since their debt will double, just like his. So he accuses someone of being a traitor who's trying to dump all the debt on Yutori. He taunts the others, trying to provoke the traitor. With a newfound confidence, he explains that since his debt is now the highest, the penalty goes to the person with the least amount of debt, the traitor. He laughs and pretends he was joking. There's no traitor, right? The bluff works, and the group answers yes, moving on to the next game. Yuuichi wants to weed out the traitor before the next game, so he asks how much debt everyone has, to which Tenji replies that they should all have the same amount since they won the game, 3.6 million yen. Tenji wonders if Yuichi's is doubled, but he tells the group that he has the same amount, since his was cut in half during his turn. Yuuichi doesn't believe them and stays behind to read the cards, but Shiho walks in while the ink begins to disappear. She questions him, and they both admit that they suspected each other. He's shocked when Shiho reveals that she has feelings for him and admits that her debt is really 7.2 million, claiming she made a sound before they could stop her outburst, while Tenji secretly listens in on their conversation. The second game is Badmouth Suguroku, where they anonymously write embarrassing secrets about the others onto cards, or they can choose to leave them blank. The gods, people watching, will vote on which secret is worse. The higher the vote, the more spaces a player moves. When someone reaches the goal, everyone clears the game and they get 400,000 yen. The person who reaches the end gets all the debt accumulated by everyone up until that point. Whoever is left playing receives 1 million yen without having to participate in the third game. If they all leave the cards blank, they move a single space together, ending up on the final square at the same time. In the first round, they agree to work together, and everyone leaves the cards blank, moving one space. But just like a regular board game, each space has a different condition for landing on it, and they each gain another 100,000 in debt for the first, and another 500,000 on the second space. In the third round, one card isn't blank. It says Shiho has a crush on Yuuichi, and she used to date Tenji. Shiho is shocked, and Shibei confronts Yuuichi, accusing him of already knowing. But Tenji and Shiho explain that they only dated because their fathers are friends and forced them. Shiho never had feelings for Tenji, which calms Shibei down, until Tenji provokes him, claiming he was actually in love with her and hates Shibei for the way he treats Shiho. Just before the two get physical, Yuuichi comes between them, trying to get everyone to calm down so they can make it through the game. Instead of leaving the cards blank like they agreed, the next round has 3 submissions. Shibei took baths with his mom until junior high. Yuuichi once went a week without taking a bath, and Shiho had plastic surgery. In the 5th round, there's only one card that's filled out. In junior high, Yutari engaged in compensated dating with older men. Yutari falls to her knees, sobbing and screaming, asking why Shiho would do that. Shibei mentions that she looks pretty innocent for someone who isn't a virgin. Despite his terrible attempt at a compliment, Tenji hits him and angrily tells him to back off. Yutari is absolutely crushed. Yuuichi tries to console her while she explains that she was bullied relentlessly and only did it because she was desperate for the money, the only thing that kept her bullies at bay. He tells her that he will always believe her and whispers something in her ear to prove it, which seems to make her feel better, but the others think it was some sort of love confession. Things are getting messy. Someone's trying to tear them apart. Shiho admits to knowing about it, but denies writing the card. It turns out Tenji has been spying on Shiho, using an anti-theft alarm that doubles as a recording device. He's the only one who would know other than Shiho and Yutari. Tenji is pretty happy with himself after seeing Shibei's reaction when he found out about Shiho's plastic surgery. His plan to keep her all to himself seems to be working. Tenji keeps trying to plant the seeds of doubt in Shiho's mind and tells her that it's possible that Yutari might have written the note herself to get Yuuichi on her side, since she now knows Shiho has a crush on him. Tenji goes first and plans to badmouth himself to avoid suspicion. When Tenji walks out of the booth after going first in the next round, he's taken aback by Yuuichi slapping Shiho over accusing her of writing the note about herself. But he's happy, almost giddy, that his plan to tear their friendship apart is working. There are only 2 cards this time. Shiho prefers to wear men's boxers, and Tenji is lying about his age. He's a year older than everyone else. Tenji accuses Shiho of writing that about her, but when she denies it, he promises to always believe her, still trying to gain her unshakable trust. Shiho lands on a special space, which reveals an expose researched by the management. She can use it on whomever she likes. Right when she's about to choose Tenji, Shibei jumps in front of him and volunteers, confident he has nothing to hide. It turns out Shibei's father takes bribes and is an all-around scumbag. Tenji postulates that his father is probably covering up something Shibei did, but Shiho forgives him and tells him he's not his father and neither are his crimes. The next round, someone writes that Shibei has killed someone, much to Tenji's surprise. He had it all under control, or so he thought. He didn't write it, and he can't figure out who did and why. Shibei swears it's a lie, but after learning about his father, it's hard for people to believe him, especially the gods, who are voting on whether he's telling the truth. It looks like Yuuichi has been secretly setting something up to expose the traitor. He can't disprove it, so it turns out they need hard proof to verify someone's lying. Yuuichi figures out that the game seems unfair, but really, the negative squares must balance out with the positive ones. So if they all stick together, it should leave them with the same amount of debt. He tells everyone to only write something bad about themselves to weed out the traitor. But when the cards are revealed, instead of only 3, there's a total of 10. The rules don't prohibit anyone from writing as much as they want. Shiho finds herself one step from the goal, but Yuuichi has a way to confirm the traitor once and for all. There's a penalty for lying, so they should all write down that they were the ones who applied for the Tomodachi game and sign their name on the card. Management can verify that information without leaving it up to the gods. Yuuichi makes Tenji go first, but when the cards are revealed, only one person followed through: Tenji. Finally, he admits to being the traitor, all according to Yuichi's plan. He set up 3 traps. After the info about Shiho and Tenji came out, he started using the Badmouth cards to communicate. To gain Shiho's trust, he told her to reveal the secret about him that only she knew about, which ruled her out. Then, during round 5, he told Yutari to write something about Shiho to gain her trust while continuing to pretend that she and Shiho were still fighting. Tenji's lying about his age could only have been written by either Tenji or Shibei. Slapping Shiho was another opportunity to pass a note. Then, when the special exposé came up, the management would obviously know who signed them up for the games, which eliminated any suspicion of Shibei. Despite the fact that people can write down more than one card, they all decided to give Yuuichi their name tags, which ensured they wouldn't betray anyone, allowing him to trust them as well. But Tenji still wonders why he was the last one Yuuichi suspected. Well, Shibei doesn't really know any secrets about anyone, and he's too stupid to pull that off, so the culprit was obviously Tenji. Before Shiho goes on to the next game, Yuuichi whispers something to Manabu. Apparently, he lied, so he switches places with Shiho as the only one going on to the 3rd game. Shibei never killed anyone. Yuuichi, in fact, is a murderer, having killed 3 people. The group starts infighting, wondering why he would do such a thing, and how they never knew the truth about him. Right before Yuuichi jumps, Tenji also reveals that he lied. He didn't really have feelings for Shiho. His real feelings were for Yuuichi. To prove it, he moves in for a kiss, and the two fall together. This isn't Tenji's first Tomodachi game. Tenji wakes up Yuuichi to find themselves in an underground jail cell where they'll spend the next few days. He confesses why he betrayed the group. This was his second Tomodachi game. In junior high, he had 2 friends that were inseparable, to whom he pitched starting a business with the 1 million yen he had saved up, until Shiho showed up and drove a wedge into their relationship. After reaching 3 million yen, they decide to split up, and whoever makes 20 million yen first gets to propose to Shiho. The same day, they were kidnapped and forced to play the Tomodachi game. Tenji lost and accrued 20 million yen worth of debt. They let him go, and he went after his former business partners to demand answers. Despite being told never to reveal anything about the game, he spoke with his father about it. Afterwards, Tenji found his dad dead after he went to speak with Shiho's father, as they were good friends. So, Tenji wanted to discover Shiho's true colors and get her into the game. Right now, they're 10.8 million in debt, which doesn't add up. Even when Tenji admits to lying about his debt and Shibei his, there's still 4 million unaccounted for. It must be Shiho. Since Yuuichi wants to take down the management and Tenji wants to find out the truth about Shiho and his father's murder, they decide to team up and trust each other in the next game. The 3rd game is friendly hide and seek. They must face another team where a single member from each hides, while the rest seek the other team's hider. There's a possibility to change teams, but if that team wins, the player who switched doesn't progress to the next game. However, their debt is transferred to the other team's members. There's a twist. Another team had only 1 member survive, and they have a chance to gain a new ally. When Yuuichi asks if she's a girl, he immediately accepts her onto their team. They have 2 hours to choose a hiding place before the game begins. There are a few rules, however. No violence against the opposing team, and the hider can't move from their hiding place. If they break the rules, their debt is doubled and the game is forfeited. They get cell phones to contact anyone regardless of whose team they're on. There is food and drink, but the seekers have to bring supplies to their hiders. The hiders do have a way out, a give up button. When pressed, the whole team loses. Neither Tenji nor Yuuichi trust the girl, so before finding a place to hide, Yuuichi tells her to wait a good distance behind. Yuuichi tells Tenji that, as the hider, it might be days before he's able to bring him food, and he just has to hold out until then. After 2 days, Tenji begins to become paranoid that Yuuichi is going to betray him, but he stays his hand. Instead, he decides to call him. But one of the other team's members picks up and tries to remove any hope Tenji has left, telling him that Yuichi and the girl have been sitting by the food and sleeping without even bothering to search. In their real lives, Juzo is the captain of their basketball team, which is why they're so close. He tells them that it's nearly impossible to find the other team's hider since they don't know how big the forest really is. Instead, they should follow the seekers when they try to bring him food. When Yuichi offers to join the other team, most of the team agrees to let him join, but they need the captain's approval before they can decide. Yuichi begins to laugh, egging them on. Aren't they able to make their own decisions without the captain holding their hand? He almost wins the game when Yakutaro gets angry and has to be held back so he doesn't hit Yuichi. The captain refuses Yuichi's offer unless both him and the girl join. They refused the counteroffer, and neither switched teams. The next morning, Yuichi eavesdrops and tries to butter Yakutaro up and get info out of him, learning that the other team is sensitive about whose debt brought them here in the first place. Yakutaro says he got the captain injured too many times while practicing. If he's such a nice and upstanding guy, how did he find himself playing the Tomodachi game? Chisato immediately cuts his teammate off, telling him to go watch over the girl on Team C, only for him to find her sleeping bag empty. He goes to look for her and finds her, half naked, trying to bathe. As soon as Team K becomes distracted, Yuichi makes a run for it. The two from Team K almost catch them until Yuichi pushes his teammate Maria over a ledge. Both of Team K's members stop to help her. Yuichi reaches Tenji and is able to finally give him food and let him in on the plan to bring the hothead, Yakutaro, down to dismantle the group's tight-knit friendship. It's time to set up a honeypot and catch some flies. Yuichi provokes the other team by pretending to abuse Maria, hoping to start infighting on Team K, since violence isn't against the rules as long as it's against a fellow teammate. Yakutaro and Chisato fight, but K steps between them and suggests they speak with the captain about her switching teams. He refuses, so Yakutaro decides to join Team C. He immediately attacks Yuichi after joining the team, so Yuichi and Maria have to tie him up. Yuichi listens as Maria tries to convince him to give up their leader's position, but it turns out that Yakutaro doesn't know where Juzo is hiding. He never did. Kei told him that they would have to talk to Juzo over the phone before they made it to his hiding place, since Yuichi was up to something. It suddenly clicks. Yuichi figures out that Kei is the real leader. He's been using the captain, Juzo, as a puppet. Kei takes Yuichi's call, boasting that they've already won and he should give up. He's a genius after all. Kei explains that he guaranteed their defeat by letting a time bomb like Yakutaro join their team. Yuichi tells Maria it's over. There's no way they can win. Kei figures out that Maria is from the management team and not a real player. Catching her alone, he asks her to betray Yuichi. He says Team K will win no matter what, and she'll be able to watch Yuichi crumble. Maria then convinces Yuichi to tell her where the hiding place is, before switching sides and telling Kei right in front of him. Yuichi can't believe she'd do this after everything they've done and drops to his knees, screaming. Kei is so confident that he leaves Yuichi alone. He calls Tenji and provokes him to yell so he can pinpoint his exact location. He tells Tenji their loss was inevitable. He is a genius after all. The game of hide-and-seek is over. Despite Team K completing the objective, it turns out that Team C won after all. Yuichi forced their hider to give up and press the button, forfeiting the game. He used Juzo's responsibility for his team against him by beating Yakutaro while on the phone so he could hear every punch. If he didn't press the button, Yuichi promised to break Yakutaro's fingers. One was all it took for him to give up. Yuichi let the captain hit him as many times as he did Yakutaro for payback, but Yakutaro held him back, telling him it was enough. The captain won't stop. That is, until he saw his teammate's hand. His finger was still intact. It turns out that Yuichi broke his own finger just to secure victory. Kei is furious and refuses to accept defeat, but his team would have lost respect for Juzo if he hadn't pressed the button. Tenji apologizes to Yuichi and believes that he is, after all, a good person. However, Yuichi doubts him. If he were his old self, he wouldn't hesitate to break Yakutaro's fingers to win. They're allowed to go home for a bit after the third game, just like the other friends after the second, but they are warned not to talk about the games or run away. When Yuichi and Tenji return to school, They only find Yutari. Shiho and Shibei have disappeared. Shiho was immediately accused of stealing the trip money, along with Shibei. 2 days later, Shibei's dad was arrested, and they stopped coming to school again. 2 of Shibei's friends burst through the door, wondering why they aren't with him. Showing up at his house, they discover that he's being arrested for murder. Tenji recognizes Shiho's dad at the scene, and he warns him to stay out of it. He threatens their loved ones if they get involved, while Yuichi calls his bluff, saying he'll have to come straight at him since he has no one to lose. Yutari finds them on their way back, but Yuichi tries to get rid of her and make sure she doesn't ever talk to them again for her own protection. But when Tenji and Yuichi get a call telling them she's been kidnapped, they're asked to play another game. But this isn't Tomodachi. This is real. When Yuichi shows up at the meeting spot, an underground parking lot, it's not Manabu under the mask, but someone who claims to know about his past, Kuroki. There are 3 rounds where Yutari has to choose between Yuichi or herself. Choosing herself means she receives 1/3 of the pain that he does. Before they start, he asks why this guy's the leader. Kuroki explains that he's the smartest guy in the room. He has guts, and he's loyal to his friends. The first round goes to Yuichi. He's rocked 3 times by a huge goon. The second round goes to Yuichi, who gets 3 of his fingernails ripped out with a pair of pliers. And the third round is either being stabbed in the hand 3 times, or, if she so chooses, Yutari can dance naked in front of everyone for 1 minute. Yuichi doesn't blame Yutari for anything. She's a victim. It's not her fault. Now it's Yuichi's time to propose a game. Rock, paper, scissors. If Kuroki loses using paper, he gets 5 fingers cut off. Using scissors, he loses 2. However, winning with rock means he can keep all of them. Yuichi muses that he can only throw rock and paper with his bad hand, so he should have a pretty big advantage. And if Kuroki wins, he gets 10 million yen. He refuses at first, but Yuichi says he'll give everyone there 1 million yen as a bonus. Kuroki's crew cheers him on. Confident he can't lose, he agrees. Kuroki throws paper, since Yuichi promises he won't. But Kuroki wasn't expecting him to throw scissors. Nobody said he couldn't use his left hand. The real Tomodachi game management team shows up with Tenji, who called them after Yuichi found the kidnapping call suspicious. Yuichi gives him a way out before cutting off his fingers. If one of his friends steps forward, he'll only cut off 1 of their fingers. But no one does, despite his insults and desperation. Yuichi passes out before going through with it. The Tomodachi game management takes Kuroki away. He obviously wasn't the smartest in the room. He has no guts and will turn on his friends in a second. But unfortunately, the Tomodachi games aren't over. They still have to get Shibei out of jail. In the 4th game, Friendship Guilt Court. Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.